of all the technology trends I've followed over the years, this is maybe the first one that's really driven by customers and not the technology firms themselves. At the moment, we've got so many consortiums from so many industries coming together and really, frankly, catching the technology vendors to some extent unawares. I mean, so consortiums are the way forward. I mean, can you share about how that worked for you?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'll say about consortia is they typically don't work, at least in insurance. And we have built a consortium that has worked. It's successful because we've incorporated, and we're building something real. Why don't they work, or why have we succeeded where so many others have failed? I think one of the issues is that we singularly had a common interest, and that was about removing friction in the value chain in a very specific use case in insurance. There's a lot of fat you can remove from that value chain, but why sort of many, I think, consortia have failed within the insurance context is because they're seeking their own competitive advantage, whereas within B3i, within this group of insurers and reinsurers that are part of our group, we're looking to actually save the market some money, some cost. So hence, I think that's the reason why we have been successful. I was desperately looking earlier on for a reason why I should say collaboration is not a good idea. It definitely is not a good idea where you are looking for competitive advantage. I mean, Adam challenged me to find a reason. And if you are looking for competitive advantage, the last thing you want to do is share it with someone else, share the benefit with someone else. But I think that's why many of the consortia have failed.
We use terms like open standards, but we mean my open standards, not your version of my open standard. I mean, it's a very deconstructed world. And I'm just wondering, I mean, that requires an enormous amount of collaboration. I mean, how do we see that, I mean, just being honest about it, how do we see that really honestly playing out? Ken?
I'm just going to volunteer. So talking about standards, we're talking a lot about technology standards, and that's beyond me, but I was going to bring in the point about data standards and how important they are. And just to kind of bring it down to earth a little bit, I mean, when we go out to get an insurance quote, we get 5 quotes, and we do the quote 5 times, and even if you're using an aggregator, you still do it 4 times. And that's because there's no commonality on the information that the insurer needs to collect from you, because they're not using common data standards. So something in B3i that we're doing is adopting, as Adam just said, the Accord standards, which is an insurance standardization of data, because that's really, really important. And if we don't do that, we're just going to end up where we are today, which is really duplicating effort from our customers, whether they are corporates or individual clients.
Interesting to hear about collaboration within your different sectors. And I'm just wondering about collaboration between the sectors. So if you start to put together telcos, construction, insurance, finance, throw in a little bit of energy and transport there, you've got a smart city environment which is maybe much more recognizable for everyday life. So are the things that you're doing at the industry, at the sector level, likely to help or hinder future collaboration between the sectors?
Just to pick up on, I mean, you were asking, I think, the question whether that level of collaboration exists today between industries. I'm not sure it does completely, but actually I do hope that in future, when we do have the interoperability, or we have the common technical or common data standards, and you've got a supply chain, let's say for example oil, all on a blockchain, and the insurance blockchain can speak to that blockchain, it will make our life so much easier. Just really believing that oil really existed where you say it did, and I'm sure you can apply it to construction or many other things, and that will really oil the wheels, and that's no pun intended, but that will really help improve and reduce this friction where we lose so much effort, expend so much effort in losing information, and also it reduces the element of fraud as well. I mean, that's a big deal for insurers. There's a huge amount lost to fraud. I mean, it's unquantifiable because it's fraud. You don't really know it's there. But that will eliminate a huge amount of that. So I'm really kind of hoping that we do start collaborating, but I think it's pretty early days because we're all trying to prove the blockchain model works within our own industries, but hopefully at one point, the technical solution will allow us to talk to each other.
So from a collaboration, working together, from your particular perspectives, yeah, what's sort of the burning priority to move things forward?
So in the context of insurance, I think the biggest bugbear is this legacy mindset. This idea that insurance has been so old and it's been around for a long time, it doesn't need to change. I mean, it really does need to change. And I coin the phrase quite often, out of the lab and into the business. And at the moment, it's great to see insurers experimenting with blockchain, but it's still tucked away in the lab. And the business people, the people out there who actually know where the problems lie, they need some kind of education so they can start thinking of the really good use cases that we can then be, they can then go and bang on the door of the labs and say, right, build this for me, rather than the lab building something and saying, here you go, have a play with that. So I think out of the lab and into the business, education would be my message.